I'm going to start by introducing Christine and Victoria and Lauren. Yeah. From the Invasive Species Center. They're going to start us off this morning. You guys take it away.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. That's more like it. I bet you guys are a little bit more happy to be in a nice air-conditioned place. A little bit out of the heat today, so a bit of a reprieve. Glad to have you here. Glad everyone could join us this morning. Before we start, I just wanted to check and make sure everybody has one of each of these colored cards. If you don't, can you please raise your hand and somebody will come around and make sure that you have one. Yeah. And all the teachers too, advisors, you guys can have some too. So, Chris, where did he go? So just raise your hand and we'll see if we can get somebody to bring those around to you. Okay, thanks. Okay, so while we're doing that, I'm going to explain what these cards are about. So what we're going to do today is Lauren is going to do a presentation for you and about invasive species. And intermingled in that, we're going to do a little bit of audience participation to get you guys, keep you awake, keep you active, keep you entertained. So these blue cards here are going to represent a native habitat. So everybody hold up your blue card. Perfect.
Keep them up.
Okay, this is the blue one, not that one. Perfect. So now, okay, you can put them down. At various points in the presentation, I'm going to get you to hold up your cards, and we're going to snap a photo, and we're going to put it up on the screen. So right now, everybody here is represented as a native habitat. So Victoria's going to take a picture of us as a native habitat. So everybody hold up your blue card again.
Nice and high.
Not the yellow one, the blue one. Okay, hold it facing forward if you can. Ready? Perfect. Thank you. So while Victoria gets that up on the screen, what I'm going to do is explain the yellow card now. This is an invasive species or invaded habitat. So during the time that we're going to be doing this little game, so to speak, you're going to hold up one or either of these cards depending on whether you're a native habitat or an invaded habitat. Okay? So just keep that in mind. So, did anybody get those cards? Okay, I'll make sure you have them. Okay, perfect. All right. Okay.
I need you to unlock this.
Okay, sorry. We don't have this. Here, screen's not on.
Good to go?
Okay, we'll put that picture up then when we're ready for the next time around. Okay, Victoria? Okay. All right, now I'm going to pass it over to Lauren. She's going to start the presentation, and we're going to stop partway through and do a little more activity.
Okay, guys. Can everyone hear me? I need to lean into the mic. Okay, good, awesome. So, as Christine mentioned, I'm Lauren. You may remember me from a workshop on Monday. So I'm going to walk you through some invasive species management stuff. And I'm going to apologize right off the bat because we're from Ontario. So a lot of the species mentioned are Ontario species. So I'll try to give you as much background as you'll need before I keep going. So invasive species management is kind of a huge overarching topic when we talk about invasive species. There's lots of things you need to consider. And as you can see by this crazy mind map, I'm going to try to walk you through all the steps individually so you get a good idea of the holistic aspects of invasive species management. So first off, all of you should know by now what invasive species are. They can be plants, animals, fish, insects, fungus, diseases, microorganisms that are introduced to a new location. So here's some prime examples of invasive species. On your left, it's emerald ash borer. So these little leaf-eating, wood-boring insects get into the ash trees, and their larvae eat galleries throughout all of the inside of the tree and make it so that it can't transport nutrients. So these are a huge issue, widespread throughout North America, completely killing off the ash trees. Up here at the top, this is oak wilt. So it's actually a fungus that can be spread throughout the root system of oak trees. And it's completely wiping out oak populations. Actually, right now in Michigan is a big issue. This guy is an invasive plant. It's garlic mustard. Completely dominates forest understories, and it releases a toxin basically into the soil that prevents native species from growing there. And then round goby on the bottom left, super bad invasive fish, and it's outcompeting all sorts of native fish species. So invasive species can be almost any type of species, and what makes them a problem, obviously, is that they can cause disruptions in the natural environment, competing with native plants and animals for all sorts of resources. So prime example, this is kudzu vine, and as you can see, it's very good at growing over everything. So this is a picture of a barn, but it could easily be a tree that kudzu is growing on top of, and that outcompetes the tree for light resources, for nutrient uptake, and it can become the dominant species in the area. And over time, these invasive species can actually cause extinction of native plants or animals and vastly reduce biodiversity and permanently alter the habitat. So this is an aerial view of where mountain pine beetle has gone through. So this is a lodgepole pine forest, probably in BC or Alberta, and all of the dead trees are from mountain pine beetle. So they go in, and again, they make it so that the tree can't transport nutrients properly, and they die off. So, what makes a good invader? So they can tolerate a wide variety of habitat conditions. It gives them the ability to really spread throughout North America. They can travel up all the way through the States into Canada and across. They grow and reproduce extremely quickly, and they are very aggressive competitors for resources, so they'll outcompete native species. So prime example of growing quickly and competing aggressively for resources, these are some grass carp. Now I'm sure some of you know what grass carp are already, but these species can completely wipe out aquatic vegetation in an area. They eat up to like 40% of their body weight a day, and they reproduce extremely quickly. So they can quickly become the dominant species in a habitat. So invasive species also lack natural predators or pathogens in their newly invaded area. So in their native habitat, they might have natural predators, but what makes them so good in their invaded range is that they don't have that check on their population. They also have the ability to create unfavorable conditions for native species. So as I mentioned before, garlic mustard can actually create an environment where native species can't grow because it changes the soil chemistry. So prime example of those two, those little guys are zebra mussels. The big one on the bottom is a native mussel. So the zebra mussels will actually form their dense mats and live on top of the native mussel and make it impossible for that mussel to filter feed and to survive. And eventually it'll die off. So the zebra mussels are outcompeting the native mussels, and they're actually directly harming it. So before I go into how invasive species get introduced, we are going to introduce our own little invasive species.
Okay, Victoria, did you want to put that up on the screen?
Oh,
now?
I can do that.
All right. So we're going to show you a picture of what you guys look like as an invaded habitat, or as a native habitat. So there you are. You're all blue, and you're a native habitat. So what we're going to do now is we're going to introduce an invasive species into our native habitat. So this little guy here, this little happy face ball, we're going to give him a name. We'll call him an emoji bug. So he's a nasty little guy. He's very highly invasive and very high risk to invade in our nice little habitat here. All the parameters that he likes, the food, the type of shelter and whatever, we have it here. So he likes this, he likes the climate. And while we weren't watching, he was infested in some shipping crates that were brought into our region. And the shipping crates were right over here. So that's where they ended up. They were deposited there, left sitting out of the warehouse, and the bug got out, started moving into the habitat. So we're going to pass this ball around the room, and what I'm going to ask you to do is pass it to people beside you, behind you, in front of you, at a random fashion. You can't hot potato it. Just count to 3, like 1001, 1002, 1003, and then pass it to the next person. You can't throw it. You can't not take it, so if somebody passes it to you, you have to take it. And we'll just have it move around the room, and we'll see how that works. I think I just lost my mic. And so that at some point in our next break, we're going to have you raise up your cards again. So if you've touched the emoji bug ball, you are now an invaded habitat. So when I ask you to raise your cards and you've touched the ball, you then are going to raise your yellow card. If you didn't touch it, you still raise your blue one. Any questions? Okay, start the ball going, and we'll let Lauren get back.
Okay, so we've introduced invasive species over there, but I'll talk to you about how other invasive species might get introduced. So these are plants and animals we're talking about. They naturally disperse to begin with. That's okay. That's what they do. All species do it, but invasive species tend to be pretty good at it. That's what makes them good at spreading. So this is Phragmites, or European common reed, and it's like a wetland invasive plant. It takes over ditches and like riparian zones, and it's really good at these big seed pods at the top. Are really good at spraying around in the wind. So it's really easy to spread a patch of Phragmites because of these seeds at the top. So wind is a natural dispersal method for invasive plants. This is emerald ash borer again. Insects, they can fly, so that's a great natural dispersal method for them. You can't contain them to one tree because they can fly to the next one. And obviously invasive fish. I've heard from a few of you that northern snakehead is your favorite or least favorite, whatever, invasive aquatic species. So this guy is actually a special type of natural dispersal because not only can it swim to new lakes and river systems, this one can actually go over land as well. It can go through the mud and spread to new water systems and become invasive there. And they eat absolutely everything in an ecosystem. These ones are especially bad. So invasive species also get spread quite quickly by humans. We're really good at spreading species around. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's intentional. So this is a lovely aquarium with some nice tropical fish, but on your left, there is hydrilla, and that's an invasive plant species that was first brought in an aquarium. But fragments of it can break off when you wash out your tanks, and it can get into the natural ecosystem. It's a submerged plant. It becomes almost impossible to do any recreational activity in that water system because it completely clogs out the water system. It gets stuck in your boat motor, you can't swim in it, you can't fish in it. So that's something simple where someone thinks it looks like a nice plant and they bring it in intentionally, but they don't really realize that it could get out of their closed system and become an invasive species. So ornamental plants in gardens are also a really big problem with invasive species. This is periwinkle. A lot of people still plant it in their garden because it looks pretty. But unfortunately, it's really good at getting out of the garden system and into a natural ecosystem. They completely blanket forest floors and prevent other native species from coming through.